Hello, everyone. Today is Saturday, August 9th. It's currently 9:20 p.m. I'm still trying to figure out how to do StreamYards. Um, I think I have to pay in order to put my background back on and the music. So for a while now, we're probably not going to have background or music as the intro and the outro. But yeah, I hope you guys are doing okay. I hope you guys are doing well. How was your Friday? How was your Saturday? Yesterday we talked about Hurricane Katrina, and pretty soon we're gonna come back not next Friday, but the following Friday. We're gonna go back and we're gonna do 20 years later, Hurricane Katrina. We're gonna hear all the victim stories. Just a bunch of stories. If you or anyone you know was impacted, volunteered, or was in Katrina and would like to talk about their story to the whole world, let me know. I'm trying to get as much stories as I can, not only from New Orleans, but from like Alabama, Mississippi. But I couldn't really find that much stories coming from Mississippi and Alabama. So if you guys know any stories, or if you have a story you want me to talk about, send it my way. You can email it to me, or you can send it to my Discord. So tonight, we're going to be talking about the San Isidro massacre that happened back in 1984 at a McDonald's. My dog is crying. Hold on. I think she's hungry. I just fed her, but so we're gonna be talking about that today. If you've never heard about it, there's many documentaries on it. I saw the 77 minutes documentary that was on, I believe, Amazon Prime. It freaked me out, the documentary. So I was like, you know what? I need to talk about it. So tonight I'm going to talk about it and bring awareness, because I don't think nobody has ever heard of the 77 minutes San Isidro massacre. Let me pull up everything. And tomorrow we come back on live and we're going to talk about Casey Anthony. We're going to finish up our Casey Anthony series. Well, that's loading. Let me pull another article up as well. So let me give you a little update, not a little update, but a little background of what the San Isidro McDonald's massacre was. So it was a mass murder, which occurred in a McDonald's restaurant back in July 18 of 1984 in San Isidro neighborhood of San Diego, California. The perpetrator, the man who decided to go into this McDonald's and pew pew, was 41-year-old James Huberty. He fatally pew-pewed 20 people, including a unborn baby, and wounded 19 before being pew-pewed by snipers, approximately 77 minutes after he had first opened fire. So if you're wondering how much is 77 minutes, it's an hour and 15 minutes. It was, at that time, the massacre was one of the deadliest mass shootings by a lone gunman in U.S. history, being surpassed 7 years later by the Luby's shooting. It remains the deadliest mass shooting in California. I did want to talk about the Luby's shooting as well. We can talk about it tonight. So, what led up to James Huberty to do this mass red rum? But before I get into that, I need to do my disclaimer. Everything I say is all alleged in my opinion. It's for entertainment and educational purposes only. I get my sources from trusted news sources, news stations, resources, etc. I am not responsible for anyone else's actions, comments, opinions, or what they put out. So back in July 15th of 1984, James Huberty commented to his wife Edna that he suspected he had mental health problems. 2 days later, on the morning of July 17th, he called a San Diego mental health clinic requesting an appointment. Leaving his contact details with the receptionist, Huberty was asserted the clinic would return his call within hours. According to his wife, Huberty sat quietly beside the telephone for several hours, awaiting the return call, before abruptly walking out of the family home and riding into an unknown destination on his motorcycle. Unbeknownst to Huberty, the receptionist had misspelled his name as Schoberty. His polite demeanor conveyed no sense of urgency to the operator, and he had elaborated in the phone call that he had never been hospitalized for mental health issues. Therefore, the call had been logged in as a non-crisis inquiry to be handled within 48 hours. Approximately 1 hour later, Huberty returned in a contented mood after eating dinner. Huberty, his wife, and his 2 daughters cycled into a nearby park. Later that evening, he and Edna watched a movie together on their television. So this was, I believe, 2 days. So 2 days before he decided to do this horrendous act, he told his wife, hey, I'm having bad mental health problems. And then 2 days later, on the 17th, the day before he did the mass pew, he actually called a San Diego mental health clinic and told them that he wanted an appointment because he was dealing with mental health issues. He said he wasn't okay, something's wrong. The receptionist ended up misspelling his name, and not only that, she put it in as a non-crisis inquiry, and they would call him back in 48 hours. So right there, it automatically tells you, okay, he was suffering with mental health issues. In the documentary, if you go on Amazon Prime, you can look up 77 Minutes San Isidro McDonald's Massacre. It talks about how he went through that very day, and I'm gonna explain it to you, of July 18th. He had a normal day with his wife. He was perfectly fine. Nothing out of the ordinary. But he ended up going to this McDonald's, and in this McDonald's where the neighborhood was full of the Mexican American community. And apparently James Huberty was very racist, and he did not like the Mexican American community. He didn't like the culture. He didn't like anything to do with Mexicans. So a lot of people think that not only did his mental health take place in this mass shooting, but the fact that he was racist as well took another key role in him wanting to go and pew this McDonald's. Because in the documentary, these officers were saying he could have gone, if he really did have mental health issues, he could have gone anywhere and done this mass shooting. But they think specifically, since he was racist, he just targeted this specific McDonald's because he knew a lot of Mexican American communities went to this McDonald's. They went there to hang out. They took their kids there to go play, things like that. So this is July 18th of 1984. Huberty, his wife, and his children visit the San Diego Zoo. In the course of their walk through the zoo, Huberty told his wife on his belief that his life was effectively over, referring to the mental health clinic's failure to return his phone call the previous day. He said, well, society had their chance. After eating at McDonald's restaurant in the Claremont neighborhood of San Diego, the Huberty family returned home. Shortly thereafter, Huberty walked to his bedroom wearing a maroon t-shirt and green camouflage slacks. As his wife laid relaxing upon their bed, he leaned towards Edna and said, I want to kiss you goodbye. Edna kissed her husband and then asked him where he was going. Stating her intention to soon prepare for family dinner, Huberty calmly replied he was, quote unquote, going hunting for humans. So That right there obviously shows that he was in an episode. He was in a funk. He was in a mental health funk. And I mean, I don't condone violence. I don't condone any of that. If you or anyone you know is suffering from mental health issues, 988, the USide hotline, is always available. There's online therapists who can talk to you. If you are needing assistance finding these online therapists, you can message me privately on Discord or like through my email, and I will find you therapists in your area that can help you. Mental health is very important, and I just hate how sometimes, people call these mental health institutions and they either throw it to the side and it's like, oh, nothing's wrong with you, you're fine, you're overreacting, you're going through a little episode, and they say that, and things like this happen as a result. I don't condone racism. I don't like when people are racist. I love anyone and everyone, doesn't matter the color of your skin. We're all the same people. No one's above anybody. We all bleed the same color. But for his wife, Edna, to not suspect anything, that day in the morning, he told her, well, society had their chance. Right there, she should have said, like, are you okay? Like, let me take you to a mental health clinic myself. Let me drive you. And then it's the fact that he told her in a calmly manner that he was going hunting for humans. That right there should have been her sign to be like, oh, fuck, he's going to do something. I should probably stop him and be like, you know what? Let's go. Let's go to this clinic. Let's go do something, So after that, he was holding a pew-pew across his shoulder and carrying a box of ammunition and a bundle wrapped in a checkered blanket. Huberty glanced towards, I think it's his daughter. I can't say her name. So he glanced towards his daughter as he walked towards the front door of their apartment and said, goodbye, I won't be back. Huberty then drove down San Ysidro Boulevard. According to eyewitness, he drove first toward a Big Bear supermarket and then toward a post office before entering the parking lot of a McDonald's restaurant approximately 200 yards from his Averly Road apartment. So from his apartment to the McDonald's, it's literally a 2-minute walk. Like, it's literally down the street from his apartment. Hang on, Grace. Now, so his wife, basically, from what I've read of reports and in the documentary, his wife, they did some things during the day before he went and did this mass murder. She told him, I'm tired, I'm gonna lay down before I prepare dinner later. And he did tell her, he's going hunting, he's going for humans. Nowhere did she ever blink a red flag and be like, you know what, let's go. According allegedly to one documentary, they said that she saw him carry his big old pew-pew and ammunition and didn't even do anything. She just looked at him and looked the other way. I think, too, she should have been charged because, the sniper ended up killing him. She should have been charged because she knew what he was going to do. You don't just tell someone, oh, I'm going hunting for humans. Of course, that's going to raise anyone's red flag. Like, what do you mean you're going hunting for humans? What are you doing? Like, what's wrong with you? And to her, she didn't really raise a red flag. A few days after the mass pew-pew, she ended up coming up on a news station saying that if she would have done something sooner, those people would have still been alive. She claimed that her husband was going through mental health issues, he was a racist, and she even tried to sue McDonald's. And she claimed that the food at McDonald's was so terrible, that's what made him go and pew-pew all those innocent people, the innocent unborn child, the little, I think he was 5 months old baby, Just because the McDonald's food was nasty, that's why he decided to go and mass murder all these innocent people at a McDonald's. Are you freaking kidding me? That is the most stupidest excuse I've ever heard. And she's basically was covering up her husband's actions. And I don't think that's right at all. So at approximately 3:56 p.m. on July 18th, Huberty drove his black Mercury Marcus sedan into the parking lot of the McDonald's restaurant on San Ysidro Boulevard. In his possessions were a 9mm Browning HP semi-automatic pistol and a 9mm Uzi and a Winchester 12-gauge pump shotgun. So he had the big ones and a box and a cloth bag filled with hundreds of rounds of ammunition for each weapon. A total of 45 customers were present inside the restaurant. Let me put his picture up so you guys can see how he looks while I read this to you. Because you're probably like, who is this guy? Well, I'm going to show you. Let me see. Let me find his picture. Hang on. Oh. And that's what I don't want to play. So this McDonald's massacre was the terrible thing because the news station was actually showing the bodies of all the victims. And even children were involved. So they were showing all that. And I'm kind of like, do y'all not blur anything no more? So let me add Mr. James Huberty so you know how this monster looks. While I read. Okay, so entering the restaurant minutes later, Huberty first aimed his pew-pew at a 16-year-old employee named John Arnold from a distance of approximately 15 feet. As he did so, the assistant manager, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, Guillermo Flores shouted, "Hey John, that guy is going to pew-pew you." Are you kidding me? Is that a freaking ad? Hang on, guys. Let me actually just pull up a picture just of him online. There you go. I don't want to show that part. Okay. Better. Okay. So, where was I? According to Arnold, when Huberty pulled the trigger, nothing happened. As Huberty inspected his pew-pew, the manager of the restaurant, 22-year-old Neva Kane, walked toward the service counter of the restaurant in the direction of Arnold. As Arnold, believing the incident to be a distasteful joke, began to walk away from the gunman. Huberty fired his shotgun towards the ceiling before aiming the Uzi at Kane, shooting her once beneath her left eye. She instantly passed away later. Immediately after Kane, Huberty fired his pew-pew at Arnold, wounding the teenager in the chest and arm before shouting a comment to the effect of "everybody on the ground." Huberty then referred to all present in the restaurant as "dirty swine," Vietnam a-holes, before claiming that he had killed 1,000 and that he intended to kill 1,000 more. Upon hearing Huberty's profane rant and seeing Kane and Arnold pew-pew, one customer, 25-year-old Victor Rivera, tried to pursue Huberty not to shoot anyone else. In response, Huberty shot Rivetta 14 times, repeatedly shouting, "Shut up," as Rivetta screamed in pain. As staff and customers tried to hide beneath tables and service booths, Huberty turned his attention towards 6 women and children huddled together. He first killed 19-year-old Maria Colomero Silva with a single gunshot to the chest, then fatally shot 9-year-old Claudia Perez in the stomach, cheek, thigh, hip, leg, chest, back, armpit, and head with his Uzi. He then wounded Perez, 15-year-old sister Emilda, once in the hand with the same weapon, and fired upon 11-year-old Aurora Peña with his shotgun. Peña, initially wounded in the leg, had been shielded by her pregnant aunt, 18-year-old Jackie Reyes. Huberty shot Reyes 48 times with a Uzi. Besides her mother's body, 8-month-old Carlos Reyes sat up and wailed, whereupon Huberty shouted at the baby, then pew-pewed him with a single pistol shot in the center of the back. The 8-month-old later then passed away. Huberty then pew-pewed and killed a 62-year-old trucker named Lawrence Versus before targeting a family seated near the play area of the restaurant who had tried to shield their son and his best friend beneath the tables with their bodies. 31-year-old, I'm sorry if I'm going to say your name wrong, Bethel Regan Herrera had shielded her 11-year-old son, Mateo, beneath one booth as her husband Ronald protected Mateo's friend, 12-year-old Keith Thomas, beneath the booth directly across from them. Ronald Herrera urged Thomas not to move, shielding the boy with his body. Thomas was shot in the shoulder, arm, wrist, and left elbow, but was not seriously wounded. Ronald Herrera was shot 6 times in the stomach, chest, arm, hip, shoulder, and head, but survived. His wife, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, Bethel, and son Mateo were both sadly killed by numerous gunshots to the head. Nearby, 3 women who had also attempted to hide beneath the booth, 24-year-old Guadalupe de Rio, laying against the wall. She was shielded by her friend, 25-year-old Gloria Ramirez, and 31-year-old, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, Arcindelsi Huelvas Vargas. Del Rio was hit several times but was not seriously wounded. Ramirez was unhurt, whereas Vargas received a single gunshot wound to the back of the head. She sadly passed away the next day due to her wound. One person fatally wounded who lived enough to reach the hospital. Another booth, Huberty killed 45-year-old baker Hugo Vasquez with a single shot to the chest. Okay. So let's debrief. Let's talk about this. So just by talking about this, this man, he was senseless. He was a monster. He knew what he was doing. Now, this is where I ask you guys, do you think the mental health took place, or do you think the racism took place, or do you think he was just a plain straight murderer? Like, how can somebody just do that? The fact that it said here that he even shot a 8-month-old baby with he didn't even show emotion. He didn't care. He shot children. He shot anybody and everybody. And what's crazy was he pew-pewed them multiple times all over their body in different body parts. Mind you, he did this for 77 minutes. So, according to some McDonald's workers who came out and spoke their story, they said that he would shoot and then he would reshoot the people he already shot. Like, some think that he probably got bored or he had like an urge to pew pew. So he would pew pew the victims who were already deceased. And they said that they pretty much think he didn't know what to do, so he was just shooting. He was shooting people who were out driving in the street. He was shooting outside the McDonald's. He was shooting people who were coming into the McDonald's. He shot 3 little boys who were riding their bike to the McDonald's. Anything and everything. The workers were actually hiding in the back, and then he found the workers, shot the workers. Some of them ended up going and hiding in the closet. He wounded one, and they were saying that he just kept on repeatedly like pew pewing people who were already deceased. I think one of them, he shot 55 times, if I'm not mistaken, and that person was already deceased. He actually, according to one of the documentaries, and it is true, he actually pew pewed the girl. What was her name? She had the baby. According to the documentary and from several reports I read, okay, so I think her name was Jackie. So Jackie Reyes was pregnant. So he actually pew pewed Jackie so bad that her neck, where it connects to her body, actually detached. They couldn't even recognize her. And he did pew pew her 8-month-old baby boy, Carlos, and she was pregnant. Obviously, the baby didn't make it. It was so sad because he kept on pew pewing these people, knowing that they were already deceased, to the point where they were so mutilated you couldn't even tell who they were. There was piles, like a pool of our bodily fluids all over the McDonald's floor. Okay. It's very heavy trigger warning. So if you are watching a replay and you can't watch it, or you don't want to hear me read it, your mental health matters. You can always exit. I have other lives. You don't have to stay and listen to this because it's very gruesome. It's hard for me to talk about it because I'm feeling like, oh my God, and like certain words I have to say in code words because YouTube will take me down. But it's very gruesome. And the fact too that literally a week after the massacre, a news station released the crime scene video footage of where police officers are walking into the crime scene, and they're showing these individuals' bodies just laying on the floor. They're showing everything and anything. They're not even blurring it. Nothing at all. So I am going to, I don't know what that was. Let's finish reading it, and then I'm gonna not read you, but I'm gonna show you a video and then like a little affidavit I found. It's so sad. Okay. First of many calls to 911 was shortly made after 4 p.m., notifying police of the shooting of a child who had been taken to the post office on San Ysidro Boulevard. The dispatcher mistakenly directed responding officers to another McDonald's 2 miles from San Ysidro Boulevard restaurant. So another thing that when you watch the documentary and many reports was a lot of people think that the PD failed these people, that if they would have intervened quicker, or if they would have went to the right McDonald's, they probably would have saved all those people, majority of the people who were inside that McDonald's. So the 911 operator, they mistakenly send the officers to a different McDonald's. They basically told the officers, like, hey, a child has been shot. We don't know how, but it's at, they have this child at the post office. So to the police, they think, okay, according to the documentary and according to the reports, they thought it was just a child who was in the middle of two adults probably fighting or a crossfire, and they shot the child. They didn't think that there was a whole gunman inside the McDonald's pew-pewing innocent people rageously. They just thought they were going there to see what happened and to see the child. The error delayed the imposition of the lockdown by several minutes. The only 2 warnings to civilians near the restaurant were given by passerbys. Shortly after 4 p.m., a young woman named Lydia Flores drove into the parking lot. Stopped at the food pickup window, Flores noticed shattered windows and the sounds of gunfire. Before looking up, there he was, just shooting. Flores reversed her car until she crashed into a fence. She hid in some bushes with her 2-year-old daughter, Melissa, until the shooting ended. At approximately 4:05 p.m., a Mexican couple, Astolfo and Maricela Felix, drove towards one of the service areas of the McDonald's. Noting the shattered glass, Astolfo, initially assumed renovation work was in process and that Huberty, striding toward the car, was a repairman. Huberty shot his fire gun and his Uzi at the couple and their 4-month-old daughter, Carlita, striking Maricela in the face, arms, and chest, blinding her in one eye and permanently rendering one hand unusable. Carlita was critically wounded in the neck, chest, and her I can't say it. Abdomen, her stomach, basically. Astolfo was wounded in the chest and head as Astolfo and Maricela straggled away from Huberty's line of fire. Maricela gave her baby to her husband. Astolfo handed the child to a young woman named Lucia Velasco as his wife collapsed against the car. Velasco rushed the baby to a nearby hospital as her husband assisted Astolfo and Maricela into a nearby building. All 3 members of the Felix family survived. Yes, so Carlita, her mom, and her dad came out and they've spoken. Maricela actually said that they wanted to go get McDonald's. On the way to McDonald's, they were telling Maricela was telling her husband, you know what, let's go get tacos. I'm not feeling McDonald's. She had like this gut instinct, like, no, don't go to this McDonald's. But her husband was like, well, we're already here. Let's get off and eat. So as they were getting off, Huberty sees them. He starts pew-pewing at them. He hits them all. Maricela, her husband, and her daughter ended up making it alive. They survived. Maricela came out to this day recently still, and she says that she has to wear a fake eye. She has the scars and wounds to say that, she was a victim of the McDonald's massacre. Her daughter, Carlita, she was only 4 months old. She was pew-pewed as well, but she survived. She came out and she still talks about her story. And as for her husband, I believe he passed away many years after, but he survived as well. Now, this one, hearing about the 3 little boys who were riding their bikes to the McDonald's, it really broke my heart, especially how they were just going just to go get, just to go hang out at McDonald's. So 3 11-year-old boys rode their bikes into the west parking lot. Hearing a member of the public yell something unintelligible from across the street, all 3 hesitated. Before Huberty shot the 3 boys with his shotgun and Uzi, Joshua Coleman fell to the ground, critically wounded in the back, arm, and leg. He later recalled looking toward his other 2 friends, Omar Alonso Hernandez and David Flores Delgado, noting that Hernandez was on the ground with multiple pew-pew wounds to his back and he started vomiting. So Omar's story really hit a lot of people because, according to Joshua in the documentary and in reports, he said that he saw his friends go down. I think he said David, once he was pew-pewed, he automatically he passed away right there. Omar, on the other hand, when he was pew-pewed, he was crying, he was screaming, and he was vomiting so bad. And then he passed away. And according to police, when they found Omar's body, his body was covered, was mainly sitting on top of his own vomit. Delgado had received several gunshot wounds to the head. Coleman survived. His friends ended up passing away on the scene. Huberty next noticed an elderly couple, 74-year-old Miguel Victoria Eula and 69-year-old Ida Velasquez Victoria, walking toward the entrance. As Miguel reached to open the door for his wife, Huberty fired his pew-pew, killing Ada with a shotgun to the face and wounding Miguel, an uninjured survivor. Oscar Mondragon later reported observing Miguel cradling his wife in his arms and wiping her bodily fluid from her face, shouting curses at Huberty, who then approached the doorway, swore at Miguel, and then he shot him in the head, and he ended up passing away. So Coleman, he's one of the little boys who fell to the ground, who was pew-pewed. He survived. He said he remembers seeing the elderly couple, and he was so scared to scream. He didn't know what to do. That, he was scared for his life. He didn't know if Huberty was going to go out and, I hate to say this, but go and finish the job. I hate to say it, but that's what it says here in the report. It's so sad how, if you ever gone to McDonald's, back then they had tinted windows. Now they don't have tinted windows. Now you can see through the McDonald's, and this is in broad daylight. So sometimes even without the tinted windows, you still can't see inside the McDonald's. So this couple was just going in, these kids, these people who were just going in were thinking, oh, I'm just going to go get me a quick little meal, and that's it, like a regular day. But no, they didn't know Huberty was in there doing this horrendous act. So excuse me. So approximately 10 minutes after the first call had been placed to 911, police arrived at the correct McDonald's restaurant. The first officer on scene was Miguel Rosario, who rapidly determined the location and cause of the actual disturbance and relayed his information to San Diego Police Department as Huberty fired at Rosario's patrol car. Officers deployed immediately, imposed a lockdown in the area spanning 6 blocks from the site of the shootings. The police established a command post 2 blocks from the restaurant and deployed 175 officers in numerous strategy locations. These officers were joined within an hour by several SWAT team members who also took positions around the restaurant. So as that happened, Huberty was pew-pewing at police officers. They basically, you can look up the San Ysidro McDonald's layout. I would show you, but it's so graphic, I don't want to get taken down. And out of respect to the victims, I'm not going to show it. But it was basically like open area. Like these police officers had nowhere to duck down and hide. They had to duck down and hide behind their cars. Even at that, Huberty, if they tried to sneak up behind him, he would have saw it because it's nothing but glass and he can see around and it's nothing but open area. The only way they can probably hide is if they stand by the post office, but even at that, he can still see them. So at 5:05, all responding law enforcement personnel were authorized to pew the perpetrator or perpetrators should they obtain a clear shot. Several survivors later reported observing Huberty walk toward the service counter and adjust a portable radio, possibly search for news reports of his actions before selecting a music station and further pew-pewing individuals he had danced to the music. Shortly thereafter, Huberty searched the kitchen area, discovering 6 employees and shouting, "Oh, there's more. You're trying to hide from me, you bastards." In response of one of the female employees screamed in Spanish, um, don't unalive me, before Huberty opened fire. He unalived 21-year-old Paulina Lopez, 19-year-old Elisa Borba Fierro, and 18-year-old Margarita Palaria, and critically wounded 17-year-old Albert Leos. Immediately before Huberty had begun pew-pewing, Palaria grabbed the hand of her friend and colleague worker Wendy before the two began to run. Palaria was then fatally pew-pewed. Flanagan, 4 other employees, and a female customer and her infant hid inside the basement Unity room. They were later joined by Leos, who had crawled to the Unity room after being pew-pewed 5 times. When a fire truck drove within range, Huberty opened fire and repeatedly pierced the vehicle with ammunition, slightly wounded one occupant. Carrying a wounded teenager, 19-year-old Jose Perez Moni, Huberty pew-pewed him in the head. The youth slumped beside the booth he had been seated at. Perez did pass away alongside his friend and neighbor, 22-year-old Gloria Gonzalez, and a young woman named Michelle Carncross. At one point, Aurora Pena, who had Ian wounded beside her deceased aunt, baby cousin, and 2 friends, noted a lieu of firing. Opening her eyes, she saw Huberty nearby staring at her direction. He swore he threw the bag of french fries at Pena. He then retrieved his pew-pew and pew-pewed the child in the arm, neck, and jaw. Aurora survived, although she would remain hospitalized longer than any other survivor. So, okay. Sorry. At 5:17, Huberty walked from the service counter toward the doorway, close to the drive-in window of the restaurant, affording a 27-year-old police SWAT sniper named Charles Foster deployed a strategy position on the roof of the post office directly opposite of the restaurant. Basically, Foster had a single shot and he took down Huberty. So after that, Foster told the responding officers he had pew-pewed the perpetrator and that his focus remained on the motionless suspect. Nonetheless, as so many rounds has been expended from different firearms within the restaurant, police were not completely certain the sole perpetrator was deceased. A minute later, they entered, and then they ended up seeing, Huberty was the only one. When asked, hold on. Okay, so when they went in, I guess they saw a girl. And they asked the girl, hey, is the man that's deceased right there, is he the suspect who was pew-pewing? She said yes. So what they did was they ended up handcuffing his hand just in case if they didn't get him, he was already handcuffed. He couldn't get his weapon and pew-pew. But due to Charles Foster, he ended up just one snipe took out James Huberty. The incident lasted 77 minutes. Huberty fired a minimum of 257 rounds of ammunition, unaliving 20 people and wounding as many others, one of whom was pronounced brain dead upon arrival of the hospital and passed away the following day. 17 of the victims were pew-pewed and unalive inside the restaurant and 4 in the immediate vicinity. Only 10 individuals inside the restaurant were uninjured, 6 of whom had hid inside the basement utility room. So, besides that, it talks about of the fatalities, 13 sadly passed away from gunshot wounds to the head, 7 from gunshots to the chest, 1 victim, 8-month-old Carlos Reyes, from a single pew pew shot to the back. Those victims, whose age ranged from 4 months to 74 years old, were predominantly not exclusively of Mexican or Mexican American ancestry. So prior to the shootings, several of his victims, Huberty had shouted accusations or insults. One occasion, he also shouted that he himself did not deserve to live, and that he was taking care of this matter. Although Huberty had repeatedly shouted throughout his spree he had been a veteran of the Vietnam War, and he had never actually served in any military branch. So basically, James Huberty was a monster, is what I'm getting from this. He did all these things that were so terrible. He said that, he had been a veteran of the Vietnam War, but he never actually served in any military branch. So this makes me question this man. So upon reading Huberty's background, when Huberty was 3 years old, he got polio to minimize the debility of his alignment. He was required to wear a steel and leather brace upon both legs. In 1950, Huberty, which I believe is his father, purchased 155 acre. So his mom, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, Iso, refused to live on this acre with him, so she became very absent. She abandoned them, basically. And to Huberty, that really affected him. Huberty was a sullen child with few friends whose primary interest was target practice. A family acquaintance would later describe him as a, quote, I don't know if I can say this. I'm going to spell it out. Queer, little boy who practiced incessantly with a target pew pew. So when he went to college, and in college his initial study was sociology, and then he opted out and he went to go study at the Pittsburgh Institute of Mortuary Science, where he got his license as a funeral director, and then he got the embalmer license, which is okay. So at a young age, we can tell he was going through some things. He was really devastated that the fact his mom abandoned him and his father. He was very upset about it. He didn't know what to do. At a young age, people said, he liked to do a lot of target practice. He went to go study sociology, left that. He got his degree as a funeral director and an embalmment license. Now, he did have a history of domestic violence. He would frequently slap or punch his daughters. He would hold knives to their throats, or he would beat his wife. On one occasion, his wife filed a report to the Canton Department of Children and Family Services stating that her husband had messed up her jaw. Although she later insisted on the majority of the occasion he had assaulted her, he struck her only once. She told him that he needed to seek counseling and some type of therapy. She said he had a temper, anxiety, and he had general paranoia. It influenced and to both influence and control his behavior. Oh, so she basically wouldn't argue with him. She would let him do whatever he want, basically. She would, so in order to keep him stable, she would read his tarot cards or his future, and he believed her. That would put him in a calm manner for a while. To his neighbors and coworkers, Huberty was perceived as a sullen, ill-tempered, and somewhat paranoid individual obsessed with pew-pews who had harbored a mental tally of every setback, insult, or general source of frustration. So in 1982, he was laid off and his job, and that resulted him to move to, so he left Ohio. So he had to basically move to Ohio to Tijuana in Mexico. And then 3 months later, he moved to San Isidro. They said he applied for a residency in Mexico. And then he ended up just moving to San Isidro. So basically, from what I got out of this was he had a whole background. He had a domestic violence background. When he was young, he was always doing target practice. People said he had anxiety, paranoia, all the things. So basically, since he was young, he was a red flag. I mean, the fact that his wife had to do these tarot cards just to keep him stable, where he wouldn't hurt her or the daughters, is just like, oh my God, like, are you... So basically, James Huberty was a walking red flag from the beginning. He had history, he had a past, which is crazy, you know? So I'm going to play you this video of Wendy. So Wendy was a survivor of the San Isidro McDonald's massacre. We're going to see it, talk a little bit, and then that should be the end of this podcast.
And sayings like, love every moment, laugh every day. Signs of a 40-year effort to find peace. The summer of 1984, Flanagan was chosen for varsity cheerleading.
I was loud. I was very happy. I had never experienced loss.
The San Isidro McDonald's was her first job. July 18th changed everything. Then it was the largest mass shooting in U.S. history. For 77 minutes, the gunman killed 21 people and wounded 19 others. Flanagan hid in a closet. When officers escorted her out, she was a different person.
I was like, I don't want to be popular. Now I don't want to be noticed.
The next day, she went to work at a different McDonald's. Everything was a reminder. The beeping French fry alarm, the floor tiles.
Any little thing, like, I don't like, I think everybody's shooting at me.
They sent her home. She switched schools. but didn't find the normalcy she craved.
They're like, oh, you're that girl from that shooting. I was like, I'm out of here. Then I started ditching class.
She bounced between waitressing jobs for decades.
And I would never succeed at anything. And I felt like a loser. Like, I was like, what is wrong with me? And it's been a long time, like, get over it. But I never really could.
She turned to crystal meth.
I was just trying to stay alive any way I could. I did not ever go out of my house, hardly ever at that time. And when I did, I would have to take like 2.5 hours to get ready. I would be full makeup, hair, nails, everything perfect. So that I could present myself to the world like, look, I'm okay. But the majority of the time I wasn't okay.
When her mother lost their house, Flanagan became homeless. During that time, she says she found Jesus and astonishing empathy.
I know that people don't want to hear about the shooter, but I think he was a victim as well. I do. Any person with that much hatred.
In her 40s, she learned the word for what derailed her life, PTSD, and that it qualified her for disability benefits. Caseworkers helped her get rent assistance. She says it isn't true that time heals all wounds. She's had to figure out how to live with them.
When I was a little girl, they asked me when I want to be a normal girl. I just kept saying that. I want to be a normal girl, I want to be a mommy, and I want to be a teacher. That's it. And I ended up not being a normal girl, not being a mommy, and not being a teacher. Like, how is that? And it was not my doing. You know, the things that happened to me kept me from fulfilling those dreams, you know. But I'm not bitter. I mean, I'm saying like God has replaced what I lost by other means, you know, like I said. I'm not like fun and go out and popular and pretty, everything anymore, but I'm at peace.
In the closet with Flanagan that day was Al Leos, defensive back for Chula Vista High. They had just won the championship.
I was looking forward to my senior year, defend the championship, and look forward to try to get a scholarship to go to university. It was wiped out completely that day.
Bullets just missed his heart and spine.
I watched a lot of babies, moms, fathers, young kids just have their lives just snuffed right out from underneath them, and there was nothing I could do to help them.
He crawled to the closet where he made a deal with God.
If you don't take me away, I'm going to do something good with my life.
Leos's wounds left him bedbound.
My dad stayed home from work for, 5-6 months to take care of me.
The San Isidro community rallied.
And they put food on our table. They paid our monthly bills.
When Leos healed, he became a cop in San Isidro, his way of giving back. He says he had nightmares for years. Then one night, he came across a burning vehicle and heard a man inside. Protocol is to wait for firefighters. But Leos refused to be powerless again. He reached into the flames.
But it was like in the movies. I pulled him out. I dragged him away from the vehicle. And as I'm dragging him away, the car blew up.
He saved the man. The nightmare stopped. Still, the shooting feels like yesterday. A lot has changed since 1984. He's a San Diego police captain now. Officers have SWAT equipment. They're trained not to wait to take down an active shooter. The Violence Prevention Project says there have been 164 mass public shootings in the U.S. since, leaving countless more survivors who, like Flanagan and Leos, have to figure out how to live with the wounds. Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
At just about 4 p.m. on July 18th, 19.
All right. I forgot to unmute myself and I was talking away. Um. Okay. So basically, you heard from 2 survivors. Um. They're still trying to cope with what's going on. They're still trying to live a normal life after what happened. I can imagine any other victims who were in the massacre, how they're doing, all the therapy they had to go through, pretty much everything and anything. It sucks. It's hard. But the fact that Wendy said, James Huberty was a victim really made me, when she said that, when I first heard it before, I was like, why would you say he's a victim? Like, how is James Huberty, this man who senselessly, no emotion, pew pew, all these people, how is he a victim? How is he a victim? Why would you say he's a victim? To me, I see him as a monster. I see him as a man who didn't care. He was like, he to me, I see him as a monster. He didn't care. Some people besides Wendy say he is a victim. He's a victim of mental health crisis. He was wanting help. He needed help. He just wanted someone to listen to him, someone to talk to him, someone to tell him, hey, everything's okay, let's talk. And it sucked because he reached out for help and he didn't get the help he needed. He was ignored. The receptionist put it as a non-crisis emergency. Sorry, the dog started barking. As a non-crisis emergency. And, you see in some reports, in some things that occur all in the world, you see where most of these perpetrators do it because they're suffering from mental health issues. They try to reach out for help. They try to do things. Everybody ignores them. So what do? They go and do these horrendous acts. I actually Googled it and I did my work. I did my studies. I'm actually going to do a live on it soon. But according to the studies I've read, because I like to read up on things, I like to know, like, well, why did that person do it? They claim mental health. Why? According to some studies, is that when people feel ignored, they go and do things, whether it's good, bad. They go and do things to cope with their mental health issues, with their suicidal tendencies. So for one example I read on James Huberty was that even though he was suffering from mental health issues, from paranoia, some people said he had schizo. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think it is. I'm not sure. Don't believe me on that. I have to look it up more. But he basically said, well, what do I do? So some people said he was racist. And they think with him being racist and him going through mental health issues, he sought out to go and, quote unquote, as he said, hunt humans. And he targeted these innocent people, these Mexican American community, as a coping mechanism to deal with his anxiety, his paranoia, and many other things. Another case was I think it was a boy. He had very harsh mental health issues. They said he was a psychopath in his early age, and he went and pew to school, and he said that it helped him cope his anxiety. And it's weird because they reached out for help from mental health institutions or clinics, and they were never reached out to back. They told them that, oh, here's this medication you can drink and you'll be fine. Go see a therapist, or you'll be good. There's nothing wrong with you. I think certain mental health institutions need to step up their game. If somebody is reaching out to you for mental health, as a mental health crisis, they need help, they need someone to talk to. I think these mental health institutions and clinics should take them very seriously. They shouldn't put it as a non-crisis alert. Whether they are having suicidal tendencies or not, you should take every mental health crisis call that you get very seriously. I've talked about it in Aubrey Wyatt, where I said, people bully, people go through mental health issues. Bullies use, in some studies from what I heard, is that some bullies go through mental health crisis, and they bully, and they think that, bullying and torturing other people makes them feel better, makes them feel not down in the dumps. So I think these mental health issues clinics should take it very seriously, because you don't know, like I've said, you don't know who's on the other line that you're talking to. You don't know how that person feels. You don't know their full background. You don't know what they've been through, the trauma or anything. So I think these clinics should have stepped up their game and be like, you know what, sir, come on in right now and let's talk. And I'm sure if James Huberty would have got the help he needed, he probably would have never done this senseless act, as along with many other people who claimed they had mental health issues and crisis. I'm sure if these clinics stepped up and helped them, they probably would have never done the horrendous acts that they did. Mental health is no joke. We all, not all, but some go through mental health crisis. And I always say it, my DMs are always open to anybody and everybody. It doesn't matter the time, whether it's day or night, late at night. You can feel free to message me on Discord. You can email me. If you think I'm not going to respond to you on both, you can message me on Discord and be like, hey, can I have your personal number? I need to talk to you. And I'll give you my personal number, and you can tell me your problems. You can tell me what's wrong with you if something is wrong. I'm here for anyone and anybody. I actually spoke to a girl. She has nothing to do with this podcast. She's a friend. She was having very suicidal tendencies, and she was telling me the reason why she was and how she felt. And I told her, because one day she did scare me. She was like, this is what's going on, and I feel like this. I told her, you know what? I'm here for you. I'm glad you're here. And, I talked to her. I still talk to her every day, and she told me, she's like, thank you for sitting and talking to me, because nobody wants to take the time to sit and talk to me. I have such a big heart. I will listen to anyone and everybody, whether you think you're going on and on and on and on and on about things. I'll sit here and talk to you. But if you mention that you're having tendencies, of course, I'm going to take action, and I'm going to call that 988 lifeline, and I'm going to do what I can to make sure that you're okay. I have a big heart for anybody and everybody. You can hate me. You can hate me. You can be my friend. You don't have to know me. You can be a stranger. If you're going through something and you need someone to talk to, I'm here. Like, genuinely, I'm here for you or anybody. You may not even, I probably don't even know you, and I'll sit here and listen to you talk, because it's 2025. There's so much hate and violence in this world that we need to spread love and positivity. And I just think that we can prevent certain things like this that happened with the McDonald's massacre. It could have been prevented if somebody would have had the time to sit with James Huberty, and if he would have got the right treatment. It would have never happened. Those innocent people, those innocent kids, the innocent children, the bystanders would probably still be alive to this day. The ones who were injured probably would have never had their injuries. They would have been okay and well, And I always tell people, don't be mean. Don't be a bully. Be kind. Be there for one another, because you don't know how the other person that you're bullying, that you're being rude to, is feeling. I work for a customer service industry. I see people who come in and out with rude attitudes, who come very rude, who say all these hurtful things to me, and all I tell them was, I hope you have a nice day, and if your day is not good, I'm sorry about that. Because why am I going to retaliate and be like, you shouldn't talk to me like this, you should speak to me in a nice manner, when I don't know how the other person's feeling? Maybe if I said that, I would have upset them and they would have came and retaliated back to me. That's why I always keep a positive energy when I'm at work, even though like it's so stressful, because I'm kind of like, you'd never know how the other person feels. You never know if that person's really going or struggling with very hard mental health issues, including with disability. Some people have disabilities and they go through mental health issues because they can't perform things right with their disability, especially in schools. When we talk about the next podcast of the school shootings, I'm going to bring out resources, and I'm going to bring back the bullying resources. So that way, if you as a parent or anyone with kids can show your kids like, hey, be nice to everybody. Don't be rude. You don't know how that other person's feeling. You don't know what the other kid is feeling at home. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Always be kind to others. Don't ever, they can be assholes to you, whatever. Just tell them, you know what? Sorry, your day's shitty. Have a nice day. And that's it. And go on with your day. But I've always said it, you never know how the other person feels on the other side of the screen, on, the other side of their emotions. And another thing is racism. I don't condone racism. I don't get how people, it's 2025. Even back then, I don't get how racism is a thing. We're all the same people. Doesn't matter the color of our skin. No one's above anybody. We all came from the same way. We all bleed the same thing. So I don't get how people are racist. I don't condone racism. I don't like racism. Me being in the Mexican community, we face a lot of racism. Like, I see it almost every day at work. But yeah. So we hit an hour and almost 15 minutes. So this concludes the live of the San Isidro McDonald's massacre. My heart, prayers, and condolences go out to the victims and everyone who was impacted in the massacre, to all the survivors who had to endure that, had to see this horrendous act, all the officers, anybody and everybody who was affected in this. If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health issues, suicidal tendencies, or needs someone to talk to, 988 Lifeline is a good resource. If you feel like it's not and you need a therapist, look up your local mental health crisis clinics. And if you feel like you don't get help there, you can always hit me up on Discord. You can email me. If you need any resources, hit me up. I'll send you any resources. I do have some in my Discord under resources. I have some resources there. I have the hotlines. I have everything listed. But yeah, that concludes tonight's live. Thank you to all my replay crew. I do have a live tomorrow involving Casey Anthony. So tomorrow we're going to go back to Casey Anthony. I know we took like a week or two off from live streaming, so I'll be back tomorrow. The last live we did was Casey Anthony. Tomorrow we're doing Casey Anthony. Monday we have another live, and I think Friday. Oh wait, let me see my calendar. I have one. Okay, so I have one tomorrow. I have one Monday, the 15th. We were going to talk about the Chicago Tylenol tragedies. And then on the 22nd of Friday, we're going to do Hurricane Katrina 20 years later. I did see a comment in my Discord and underneath my recent Hurricane Katrina video of a woman whose daughter volunteered. And she witnessed and saw the aftermath of Katrina. I hope she responds to me, because I do want her and her daughter on here, if they want to share their experience and their stories regarding Hurricane Katrina. I did look up a lot of Hurricane Katrina stories that we're going to talk about. And yeah, that concludes tonight's live. I'll be live again tomorrow, same time, 8:30, 9 o'clock Central Time. We're going to finish up the Casey Anthony. Well, finish up part 2 of Casey Anthony. We have a lot more to go with Casey Anthony. I do want to stream her trial. So get ready for that. But yeah, I hope you guys have a good rest of your Saturday night. I will see you guys tomorrow, 8:30 Central Time, where we're going to talk about Casey Anthony, because it's most requested. So we're going to talk about Casey Anthony. I love you all, and I'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you like and subscribe. Bye, guys.